Look, we need to talk about what's actually happening out there right now. There is a massive current shifting beneath the surface of the standard political horse race. As co-director here at Universal News Frontier, I spend my days digging past the predictable headlines to bring you this explainer. And when we first pulled the numbers we're seeing right now, honestly, the sheer scale of it blew my mind. We are witnessing a fundamental realignment heading into the 2026 midterms, and it's driven by forces that traditional outlets just aren't capturing.
Because the reality is, that $4.45 gas you're staring at down at your local pump, that's not just an oil shock. That is the sound of a political earthquake. It's a visceral, everyday reality that is officially dwarfing the records set in previous election cycles. Think about it. When it costs you this much just to commute to work or drop the kids off at school, it doesn't just frustrate people, it completely ruptures long-standing voting patterns. People don't just vote their conscience, they vote their wallets. And right now, those wallets are feeling dangerously light.
And when you actually map out this data, the contrast is just staggering. It proves we're not just dealing with standard midterm grumbling. Remember the 2018 blue wave that completely flipped the House? Back then, Dems were overperforming in special elections by an average of 10.6 points. Fast forward to today. The 2016 congressional special elections are showing a Democratic overperformance of 17.1 points. That is a massive structural surge. Candidates are winning outright in bellwether districts, crossing over into deep red territory where just 2 years ago Donald Trump won decisively. We are looking at a historic wave that is currently dwarfing 2018.
To understand exactly why this is happening, you have to look at the bigger picture overseas. The initiation of Operation Epic Fury, that military campaign against Iran, achieved its tactical goals, sure, but the resulting regional conflict has created the world's largest oil supply shock since the 1970s. The Strait of Hormuz is a massive choke point, carrying 20% of global oil, and it has been completely choked off. And the real-world impact? It's highly measurable. If you look at how the Dallas Fed models inflation, it shows exactly how the duration of a disruption and the price of crude directly spike consumer prices. It's mathematically driving up daily costs across the board, from the fertilizer used to grow our food all the way to high-tech manufacturing. Now, that massive external shock is colliding directly with domestic policy. The administration's signature legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, was designed to spur growth through corporate tax cuts and by permanently extending the 2017 tax cuts. But when you look under the hood at how this wealth actually shifts around, it is severely impacting the middle class. Because of the expiration of health insurance tax credits and the impact of new, heavier tariffs, middle-class families are looking at an average tax hike of $900 this year. So stagflation is essentially being baked into domestic policy, framing the administration's economic agenda as an inescapable affordability crisis for the everyday voter.
But that financial strain, that's really only half the story. This economic pressure builds into an even deeper fracture right here at home. On January 24th, Alex Preddy, a 37-year-old intensive care nurse, was killed by Customs and Border Protection agents in Minneapolis during an immigration enforcement surge. That tragedy acted as an absolute catalyst. Bystander videos completely contradicted the official government narrative, compounding all that economic stress with a total breakdown in institutional faith. And it didn't stop there. It triggered the No Kings protest movement, bringing 8 million Americans out to the streets to march against executive overreach, which eventually forced a crippling 43-day federal government shutdown.
Here is where it gets interesting, and it's a twist that traditional coverage is completely missing. Alex Preddy wasn't just a nurse, he was a licensed handgun owner with a permit to carry. This has created a massive, bizarre irony where the NRA and conservative Republican lawmakers are now turning against federal law enforcement. They're out there arguing that carrying a firearm is a constitutionally protected right that shouldn't lead to a death sentence. So we're seeing this rare, almost unbelievable moment where the traditional law and order party is completely at odds with its own Second Amendment wing over the actions of federal policing.
And that internal ideological split has only been exacerbated by the administration's clash with state leaders. You've got figures like Minnesota Governor Tim Walz accusing the federal government of actively blocking independent state investigations into the shooting. The result of all this, trust has completely cratered across the political spectrum. Right now, a staggering 61% of Americans express little to no confidence in the presidency. When that many people from all sides of the aisle lose faith in the executive branch, it creates this huge vacuum of leadership that directly influences down-ballot races.
Because of this, the demographic shifts we're tracking right now are just wild. This perfect storm of out-of-control grocery prices and unrest over federal policing is fundamentally realigning key voting blocs. Take the Latino electorate, for example. They showed really clear signs of trending right in 2024, but today, they're favoring Democrats by nearly 30 points across the board. And young men, a group that had heavily drifted away from the left recently, have swung back with a 16-point Democratic advantage. They are reacting to perceived chaos in an administration they feel is operating totally outside the mainstream.
Of course, momentum doesn't automatically equal victory. We have to be realistic about the map. Democrats still have to overcome their own branding hurdles. Statistical modeling shows that the perception of the party being too liberal creates a 5 to 7 point drag on their baseline polling numbers, which keeps some independent voters hesitant to fully commit. Plus, there are massive structural battles playing out. While the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is aggressively targeting 68 battleground districts, Republicans are pushing a very aggressive mid-decade redistricting effort down in Florida. That move alone could hand the GOP 4 seats right off the bat, cushioning the blow.
But if history is any guide, the enthusiasm gap we're tracking right now overrides those structural hurdles. When voters are this motivated by a combination of intense economic pain and institutional distrust, gerrymandering only protects you so much. Based on the data, I'd expect to see a scenario where Democrats are on pace to pick up 40 or more seats in the House, and with 38 Republican incumbents already retiring the cycle, the math heavily points to a massive House takeover that wipes out that retiring class entirely.
And here is the grounded, data-driven projection that really cements all of this moving forward. If the blockade in the Persian Gulf holds, market expectations project that oil prices will peak at $167 per barrel by October. If that hits right before Election Day, stagflation becomes the ultimate undeniable decider of the 2026 midterms. It makes it nearly impossible for any incumbent to knock on your door and defend their economic record when you're paying that much just to keep your life running. Which brings us to the biggest unknown of this entire cycle. So I want to throw this highly debatable contradiction straight to you. If the NRA and Republican lawmakers are now publicly criticizing federal agents over the rights of a gun-owning nurse like Alex Preddy, has the administration officially lost its own base? Or is this just a temporary split that will heal by November? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading through them. Keep questioning the narrative, and I'll catch you on the next explainer.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.